Story 1. The Mannequin That Moved Outline. 1. Closing time. Shadows. Have you ever stared at a mannequin and felt it stare back? That night, Hannah was the last person to close the retail store. Midnight had already fallen, and the mall was an eerily empty place. The usual chatter of shoppers was replaced by the buzzing hum of fluorescent lights and the faint echo of her footsteps against tile. She hated closing shifts. They made her feel isolated, almost as though someone unseen was sharing the silence with her. While walking toward the women's section, she froze. One mannequin had its head tilted strangely, chin angled downward, almost as though its lifeless glass eyes were trained on her. She shook off the thought. Stores always played tricks on your mind when you were tired. Still, the feeling clung to her like static. 20 minutes later, after counting registers, she passed the same section again. The mannequin's scarf was different. The knot that had been tight earlier now drooped loosely, as if invisible fingers had tugged on it. Hannah's throat tightened, her skin cold, but she forced herself to keep working. The ceiling speakers sputtered, went silent. The air around her grew unnaturally thick. In the corner of her eye, she thought she saw the shiny head tilt further. Then came the noise, the faint scrape of plastic against tile. Directly behind her, outline 2, evidence that shouldn't exist, her walkie-talkie hissed softly as she pressed it. Security. Anyone doing rounds? Only static replied. The overnight guard wasn't answering, which unnerved her more than she dared admit. Forcing her focus back to the final inventory tasks, she told herself she was imagining things. Just lamps, shadows, her exhaustion. Yet mirrors around the kids' section betrayed her. Reflections flashed something behind, limbs too pale, too still. One mannequin was missing. Fear gnawed at her, but she retraced her path to check. When she reached the women's section, her heart sank. There in the middle of the aisle stood the mannequin, blocking her path, its glossy face gleaming under harsh lights. Worse, white streaks, chalky residue from its plastic base, trailed across the floor, leaving behind undeniable tracks. Hannah's hands trembled. She knew no one had touched it, but reality was undeniable now. The mannequin had moved. Her pulse quickened as she noticed something new wrapped into its scarf. A crumpled paper, wedged deep in the knot. Against all better judgment, she reached for it, her fingertips brushing cold polyester. Pulling the paper free, she unfolded carefully. Scrawled in uneven black marker was a message that didn't belong in her store's inventory.
Stop watching me!
Before she could react, the sound of strained hinges echoed. Another mannequin's head jerked, tilting slowly as if acknowledging her. Outline 3, the surveillance game. Hannah staggered backward, her chest heaving. She considered bolting out of the store right then, but the main shutters were already locked for overnight safety. Only the guard had keys. She looked toward the cameras overhead, hoping security was monitoring. But all their little red lights had gone dark. That's when she noticed every mannequin, the ones scattered through men's, women's, even accessories, were facing ever so slightly toward her. They hadn't stood like that when she clocked in. The silent crowd loomed. Panicked, she grabbed her phone and opened the camera, aiming it at the nearest mannequin. Through her screen, the image glitched. The blank face wavered, then for a heartbeat, it blinked. She dropped the phone with a clatter on the tile. A thump sounded behind her. She spun around to see another mannequin, this one from the boutique near the entrance, standing where it hadn't before. Its positioning subtle, but its arm extended forward as though reaching. Hannah whispered to herself, "They're not real. They're not real." But her heartbeat betrayed her. In desperation, she ran to the employee break room, shoving the door shut and locking it. The room was windowless, suffocatingly small, a fragile box of safety. There on the table sat the store's black and white monitor for surveillance feeds. Relief nearly drenched her body when she saw the cameras were functional. Here, until she leaned closer. Every monitor now showed mannequins, not in their store, aisles but clustered directly outside the break room door. Outline, "Nowhere safe." The feed flickered, static blurring their outlines. Hannah's chest crushed with panic as she grabbed a chair, wedging it under the doorknob. But the cameras revealed their steady advance. First, they seemed inches from the door. Then, moments later, closer still, their limbless plastic feet leaving trails like chalk dust. She backed into the corner, hyperventilating. The fluorescent light above hummed louder, buzzing like an insect swarm ready to burst. Her walkie crackled unexpectedly, and from it spilled a warped mechanical voice that made her hair stand on end. Stop. Watching. Her skin went numb. They were inside the system, inside the air, inside her. Suddenly silence pressed against her ears. The cameras went black. She turned toward the locked door and almost cried relief when she heard footsteps. Heavy, real ones. She shouted, "Security, in here!" The knob rattled, the chair wobbling. Instead of rescue, the door creaked open despite its barricade. The walkie hissed again and she realized those footsteps didn't belong to a human. Moving stiffly through the doorframe's opening gap was a mannequin's blank white hand. It curled deliberately around the edge of the break room wall. Outline 5, the windowless exit. Adrenaline surged. Hannah bolted to the emergency key cabinet at the back of the break room, smashing the glass with her elbow. Blood streaked the wall, but she grabbed the small silver key. Shoving past the advancing mannequin's arm, she ran through storage toward the rear exit. Her body collided with boxes and garment racks, heart slamming against her ribs. She reached the steel door, jammed the key in, twisted and shoved hard. It banged open into the chilled night air of the loading docks. Relief struck like lightning. She stumbled outside, gulping the cold. Only something was off. The air was too still, too silent. Slowly she turned. There, against the far edge of the dock, the row of mannequins stood assembled neatly under the pale glow of the sodium lamps. All of them perfectly still. All of them facing her. One mannequin, the scarfed one, now clutched her phone in its stiff plastic hand. The screen lit up with a new note typed out. "You shouldn't have left." The lamps overhead flickered, and in the stuttering dark, their positions shifted closer. Each blackout erasing space between them and her. The final flicker drowned the dock in shadow. When the lights buzzed back on, Hannah and her scream were gone. Only a mannequin resembling her stood at the dock's edge, red scarf tied snug around its neck. Story 2. The woman in aisle 9. Outline 1. A shuffling customer. That never leaves. Have you ever noticed a customer who looks out of place, like they stepped straight out of another time? It was a rainy Thursday night when Omar, working the late shift at a 24-hour grocery store, first saw her. At 1:13 a.m., the store was practically empty. The floors gleamed, refrigerators hummed, and his eyelids felt heavier with every barcode beep. Then he noticed something. Faint shuffling steps echoing from aisle 9, the canned goods section. "Another night owl," he muttered, rubbing his face. But when he peered down aisle 9, he froze. A woman stood motionless, dressed in a faded floral dress from another decade. Her long gray hair draped thinly over her shoulders. The fluorescent light flickered above her, but she didn't move. Just stood there, facing the shelves with her chin tucked oddly low, as if staring too hard at beans and soup cans. "Ma'am, can I help you find something?" he asked cautiously. No response. He cleared his throat louder this time. Still nothing. Feeling unsettled, he retreated back toward the registers. Eventually, he busied himself with straightening candy racks. Minutes passed. But when he checked the monitor overhead, his blood ran cold. The camera feed showed her still in aisle 9. Exactly as she had been. Body stiff, posture unchanged, except the timestamp on the feed jumped strangely, skipping frames. In one frame, she was standing near the soups. In the next, closer to the end of the aisle. No walking, no movement caught. Just sudden jumps closer to the camera. When the feed glitched again, she was gone. Great, he exhaled, relieved, until he glanced up from the monitor. She was standing at the very end of the checkout lanes, staring right at him. Outline 2. Glitch in the camera's Omar stumbled backward, heart racing, nearly dropping the scanner in his hand. "Excuse me, the store is about to close," he blurted out automatically. Though it wasn't closing at all, it was open all night. But the woman didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even breathe. Just that heavy stare, her hair slightly shifting, though there was no breeze inside the building. Gathering courage, he lifted the store phone to call his shift manager. But as soon as he dialed, the line was dead, only faint static hissing like a crowd of whispers too far away to understand. He hung up quickly, sweat dripping down his forehead. Maybe he could get help from security. He turned back to the monitors. To his horror, the woman wasn't visible in real life anymore. Yet on the camera feed, she appeared in not one but 3 different aisles at once. frame after frame flickering between angles, frozen in cereal, then in laundry detergent, then near cosmetics. His palms grew slick, his breathing uneven. He pressed the walkie clip to his belt. Security! There's something wrong with a customer in aisle 9. Can you come now? Static answered, crackling with something faintly inaudible like a single word dragging inside it. Omar! The backlights of aisle 9 flickered violently across the cameras. He narrowed his eyes as one frame recovered, catching the woman closer. Her head was tilted far too sharply now, chin practically folded down against her chest. In the grainy footage, her jaw looked unhinged, his heart hammered painfully. Suddenly, every monitor went out, pitch black. In the reflection of the now blank screens, Omar saw her standing behind him. Outline 3, frozen smile. He whirled around with a strangled gasp, but the registers behind him gleamed empty. Just polished tile and the faint rattle of rain against the glass storefront. Get it together, man, he muttered. His voice trembled, betraying him. He bent down, fumbling for the flashlight under the counter, clicking it on with shaking fingers. A pale beam cut through the darkness of aisle 9 as he approached cautiously, refusing to admit how badly his knees shook. The aisle was silent. Rows of soup cans neatly stacked, each metallic label identical. He scanned left, then right, nothing. But the dread wouldn't leave his chest. Every nerve screamed that she was here. He stopped at the end of the aisle, exhaling relief, until he realized some cans were missing from a row he had organized earlier. Empty gaps, and in those gaps something impossible. A photograph, not an old one, not faded. A freshly printed photo tucked into the soup shelves. He plucked it with trembling fingers, his eyes narrowing. It was him, Omar, standing exactly where he was right now. Same aisle, same flashlight in hand. But there on his shoulder was the gray-haired woman grinning. Her teeth uneven, too many for her mouth. The flashlight flickered dim, buzzing low. His breath came fast as a cold whisper unraveled directly at his ear.
Smile!
He spun around instinctively. His light flared on her face just inches away, that grotesque grin stretching impossibly wide. Outline 4, lights out. The flashlight sputtered, then died. His world drowned in pitch black. Omar's scream pressed against his throat, but came out as nothing more than shallow gasps. All he could hear was the shuffle of long skirts dragging against tile, circling him slowly. He bolted forward, hands fumbling against shelves, knocking products down. The noise echoed like a storm as he raced toward the stockroom door behind registers. His palm slammed against the push bar, bursting through into the back hall. For a moment, the emergency light's dull red glow washed over him. Safe for now. He pressed his back to the cold wall, gulping shallow breaths. A faint buzzing pulled his gaze upward. The security monitor blinked on in the stockroom. His relief evaporated instantly. The grainy feed showed not the store, but the back hall he stood in right now. He was on screen, panting, retreating against the wall, and there she was too, not behind him, not beside him. But on screen, hanging upside down from the ceiling directly above him like some nightmarish insect. Her hair dangling, face contorted with that wide, impossible grin. Omar's knees buckled. Against every instinct, he tilted his head upward. The ceiling above was dark, empty, nothing there. When he looked back at the monitor, she was closer on the screen, crawling spider-like down toward his own image, her jaw hanging open. Then, for the first time, he heard her voice for real. Not inside electronics, but alive and thick. Directly behind his ear, we open together. Outline 5, last customer. Omar sprinted. His shoes slapped against tile as he tore down the back hall, past crates of soda and bags of rice stacked high. The emergency exit glowed ahead like salvation. He slammed against its handle, alarm shrieking through the still night. Cool rain wind hit his face as he spilled into the loading dock outside. He didn't look back until he had to. There in the doorway, she stood under the red glow, fixed on him. Her floral dress sagged with dripping rainwater, though she'd never left the building. He stumbled back, his shoes splashing in puddles. The alarm stopped suddenly. Silence fell. The loading dock lights flickered once, then cut out. Pitch black swallowed everything. When the lights blinked back, she was gone. Relief nearly buckled his knees. Until he glanced down, he wasn't standing on wet pavement anymore. Beneath his feet stretched tiled aisles, polished and sterile, soup cans stacked high on either side. He was in aisle 9 again, frozen, trapped. From far down the row, the grey-haired woman's distorted figure shuffled toward him, grinning, her voice echoing in detuned rasp. "Don't worry. This store never closes." And the lights flicked one final time. When they brightened again, aisle 9 was pristine, empty, silent. No trace of Omar remained. Only a new photograph rested neatly where the soup cans had been. It showed the woman smiling. And this time, Omar was smiling too, standing loyally beside her. Story 3. Voices in the fitting room. Outline. 1. The whisper behind the curtain. Have you ever heard someone talking to you when you knew you were completely alone? Kayla was working her evening shift at a mid-range clothing store tucked in a suburban mall. The store was quiet, too quiet for 8 p.m. The fluorescent lights hummed softly, walls smelled of fabric freshener, and only 2 dressing rooms were in use. After tidying a rack of jeans, she noticed one curtain drawn shut. Odd. Both customers had already left, receipts still warm from the register. She cleared her throat. "Anyone still in there?" No reply. She pulled the guest log, which required customers to sign out clothing items tried on. Empty. Uneasy, Kayla leaned closer, her ear almost brushing the fabric. That's when she heard it, a whisper, faint, almost childish in tone. She stiffened. The words curled softly, spilling into her ear. "Don't open it." Kayla staggered back, pulse spiking. She spun toward the floor mirrors, scanning the reflection. The curtain swayed faintly, though no breeze rippled the store. Terrified but trying to be rational, she told herself maybe a prankster had crawled in unnoticed. She grabbed the store key used for locked rooms and approached, her breathing shallow. The moment she touched the curtain rod, an icy hush swept through the room. The whisper returned, clearer this time, sliding into her head. "If you open it, you'll see me." Her hand froze halfway. And then, sharp fingernails dragged from the inside down the length of the fabric. Outline 2. Empty, but not alone. Kayla's throat tightened. She forced herself to yank the curtain aside, pulse screaming in her ears. The tiny cubicle was empty. 4 blank beige walls, the stool in the corner, a single hanger hooked lazily. Nothing else. Her heart didn't ease. The room pulsed with wrongness, as if someone had only just slipped away. She crouched, flashlight from her phone slicing through shadows. No shoes, no feet, no trapdoor. Nothing at all. The dressing stall was completely ordinary. "Great," she muttered, though her hands shook. She shut the curtain and turned to leave. That's when the overhead music, usually bland jazz, warped into static. It whined high-pitched, then fell into silence. The sudden quiet was worse than any noise. A low exhale stirred the back of her neck. Whipping around, Kayla realized she was now inside the fitting stall. The curtain had somehow drawn closed behind her. She yanked it open. Empty store beyond. No sound except her strangled breaths. The mirror across from the stall reflected her, except not quite. Her own reflection was off. The real Kayla clutched her phone with the flashlight on. But in the mirror's glossy surface, her reflection's hand was empty. More terrifying, it was smiling. Kayla dropped the curtain and stumbled backward. When she dared to glance again, her reflection had returned to normal, but a childlike giggle echoed right inside her skull. Outline 3. The knock beneath the floor shaken. Kayla grabbed her walkie-talkie. "Front desk? Anyone still here?" No answer. No voices, not even static. She was utterly alone, or so she thought. She forced herself to focus, tucking stray hair behind her ear. Her vision darted to the mirror again. Normal. Nothing wrong, nothing smiling. She whispered out loud just to fill the silence. "It's fine. Get through your shift. Don't panic." Then it came, 3 distinct knocks beneath her feet. She froze, listening hard. Another knock, louder, hollow, echoing like knuckles rapping from under the floorboard. She whispered, "Hello?" instantly regretting it. This time an answer. A faint, muffled voice. "Down here." The floor creaked under her weight. Her flashlight beam trembled as she pointed toward the seam of linoleum near the mirror's edge. For a fleeting second, she swore she saw pale fingers pushing upward, straining through cracks that shouldn't exist. She bolted backward, crashing into the stall's wall. Her head spun. None of this made sense. The fitting rooms were on solid concrete tiles over mall foundation. There wasn't supposed to be any hollow crawl space beneath them. Kayla banged the door wide open, desperate to leave. Out on the sales floor, everything looked normal. A few scattered clothes, bright ceiling lights, safety, yet from the dressing room she'd just fled came a whisper, calm but urgent. "Kayla, come back. Try this one on." And when she turned, one curtain was drawn shut again. Outline 4. Customers that don't exist. Heart thudding, Kayla marched straight for the registers. She'd call mall security, leave the store, anything. But when she reached the counter, something new made her blood freeze. A receipt printer rattled to life by itself. White slips of paper spat out in an endless roll. She forced herself to read one. The printed line made her knees weaken. Customer, Kayla. One item, no return. She tore the receipt away, only for the machine to keep printing over and over. Her name, her ID tag number, her shift hours. One line stood out bolder than the rest. "Fitting room sale, she is your size." The printer shrieked and jammed. She stumbled back, clutching the slip. Just then, she heard the unmistakable chatter of customers. Laughter, shuffling hangers, footsteps on tile. Relief rushed her chest. Others had come in. She walked quickly toward the sounds, calling, "Hey, sorry, store's closing soon." The moment she rounded the corner, her words snapped short. Customers filled the aisles, but every figure had its back to her. None turned, none moved naturally. They froze like wax statues mid-shopping. Her skin crawled as she drew closer. In eerie unison, each slow head began turning toward her. Their faces weren't faces at all. All of them wore her smile. Outline 5, what stays behind, Kayla darted for the front exit. She tugged the sliding glass doors. They didn't budge. Locked. No matter how hard she pulled, they refused to open. The customers shuffled closer, their faceless heads twitching, their movements jerky, mannequin-like but unnatural. Her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. She yanked it free. A new message sat on the lock screen. No number. Only words, "fitting in." She screamed, throwing the phone. It hit the floor but didn't shatter. Instead, its screen glowed unnaturally bright, lighting the space around her. In its reflection, she saw herself again, but her double wasn't copying her panic this time. The reflection of Kayla calmly pulled aside a dressing room curtain, stepped inside and closed it. The phone fizzled, cracked, and died. Every overhead light in the store clicked off, except the fitting rooms. Their dim yellow glow invited her like a stage set. Her legs betrayed her. She found herself walking helplessly back toward the drawn curtain. With trembling fingers, she pulled it open. There inside stood a mirror framed in gold, though her store had never owned one. Her reflection smiled warmly, tilting its head. She whispered, desperate, "I don't want this." The reflection extended a hand. "But you already tried me on." Kayla's throat burned with a strangled cry as the mirror rippled like water and pulled her inside. The curtain fell shut. Silence thickened in the store. When the morning crew arrived, all fitting rooms were empty, except one. Inside, it hung a brand new garment tag. It read simply, "Kayla, one of a kind." Story 4, The After Hours Caller. Outline 1, the ring that shouldn't be heard. Have you ever heard a phone ring in an empty building, when every line was disconnected? Marcus was the closing key holder for a large electronics retail store on the outskirts of town. The store shut at 10 p.m., and by 11:30 he was alone doing his final lockup before alarms armed. The blue glow of computer monitors gave the aisles a ghostly light, boxes of TVs and speakers leaning like silent tombstones. He was double-checking the back office when the phone rang. It wasn't his mobile. It wasn't the walkie-talkie. It was the landline. The office phone had been unplugged for months after the store switched to internet calling. Marcus froze. The shrill tone echoed unnaturally loud in the quiet office. Against his better judgment, he picked it up. Static hissed the line, then settled. A whisper brushed through, "We're still shopping." Marcus slammed the receiver down, pulse pounding. His rational mind churned. Prank call, bad wiring, heck, maybe even crossed lines from the internet service. The thought calmed him until the phone rang again. This time he didn't lift it, only stared, horrified as the cord swayed gently. Despite being unplugged from the wall, he backed out of the office and returned to the sales floor. The televisions on display all flickered at once, screens glowing static white. One by one, they lit up not with commercials, not channels, but security camera feeds from his own store. The images glitched. but Marcus's breath caught when he saw them clearly. Each aisle screen displayed grainy footage of figures shopping, hollow-eyed, silhouettes wandering the shelves. His store was supposed to be empty. Then a voice rasped, faintly from one of the TVs closest to him, warping into coherent words.
Customer service, aisle 6.
Outline 2. Customers that aren't there. Marcus's mind raced. He darted toward aisle 6, his footsteps crunching on the polished tile. The aisle was spotless. Rows of headphones, tablets, nothing out of place. But the air felt heavy, deep, like the whole store was breathing in slow sync. He tried to rationalize it again. Maybe some boss had left hidden shoppers, cameras malfunctioning, who knows? His rationalizations broke apart in seconds when, halfway down the aisle, he smelled something off. Not plastic or metal like usual. Perfume, stale floral perfume, faint but lingering. A woman's laugh echoed faintly behind him. Not playful, strained, cracked, almost like it choked its way out of an old throat. He spun, but the aisle was empty. Then came a thud. A heavy box toppled 2 feet away. When Marcus bent to pick it up, goosebumps spread across his arms. The label didn't make sense. In sloppy marker, the box had been relabeled, "Return defective." Customer still inside. He dropped it instantly. It felt warmer than cardboard should. From the store intercom overhead, static fizzled before a voice broke through. It was distorted but unmistakably female. Clean up in aisle 6. The sound of a cart's squeaking wheels echoed down the tiled row. Too loud, too close. He turned quickly. Nothing. When he faced forward again, a customer stood at the far end. She wore a tattered coat, her hair thinly obscuring her face. She didn't move. She didn't wave. She just watched him, head twitching side to side in jagged jerks. Then the intercom whispered, "Sharper, crueler, don't let her leave without paying." Outline 3, haunted checkout. Marcus bolted toward the registers. His fingers shook so badly he fumbled the keys, struggling to activate the front shutters. Every instinct screamed at him to get out. The cash registers flickered awake, their screens glowing a piercing white. Receipt printers churned violently, spitting endless rolls of paper across the counters. He lifted one trembling slip. The printed lines stole his breath. Customer name, Marcus, balance due, life. He crumpled it, hurling the paper across the counter. Instantly, all the registers chimed together in a deafening, unified beep. The overhead lights dimmed. Through the store-wide mirror above the sunglasses kiosk, Marcus's reflection warped. Next to him in the reflection stood a cashier, but no one was beside him in reality. The reflection cashier's tilt-headed grin widened pixel by pixel, like a computer image glitching toward distortion. Terror overwhelmed his paralysis. Marcus dashed across the floor, ready to reach the emergency back exit. His sneakers squealed against tile as he passed aisle 6 again. He made the mistake of glancing. The woman was gone. Instead, something else occupied the space. A grocery-style shopping cart, half full of shadowy clutter, creaked toward him with no one pushing it. Objects clattered inside, static spewing radios, buzzing headsets, shattered phones. Horrified, he noticed something resting at the very top, a receipt bearing his full name, address, and the words "Return request accepted." Behind him, the intercom screamed like feedback, then rasped in that same venomous whisper, "Bag him up." Outline 4, backroom bargain. Marcus sprinted toward the back stockroom, slamming the push door shut behind him. He leaned against crates of printers stacked high, breathing raggedly. Euphoric relief hit his chest. He was alone back here. This space was his safe zone, except he wasn't alone. A faint cough rasped from between the shelves. Then another. Drawing closer, he grabbed a heavy flashlight, flicking it on. Across the storage rows between mountains of merchandise, pale shapes twitched unnaturally in the gloom. Mannequins, dozens of them, all slumped upright, their heads tilting in jerky unison. Marcus raised the flashlight higher. No, not mannequins, customers. Dozens frozen in grotesque poses like mannequins, their bodies pale and still, their eyelids sewn crudely shut. Receipt tags dangled from their wrists like price markdowns. One closest figures tag read, "Discount 100%, no longer human." A rattling grew louder. He turned. In the dark corner, the woman in the tattered coat stepped forward, her mouth sewn into a permanent grin with black thread. She clutched something in her hand, the unplugged office phone receiver. Its cord dragged across the floor behind her. She raised it slowly to her lips, though no line connected it anywhere. The phone in Marcus's back pocket began to ring. Outline 5. Final. Transaction terror pulsed in Marcus's skull, but adrenaline narrowed his thoughts. He bolted down the long storage corridor toward the delivery exit. Boxes crashed around him as if shoved by unseen hands. The phone in his pocket shrieked louder, vibrating like it wanted out. The delivery bay light glowed ahead. He slammed the emergency bar. The night air swept over him like salvation. He raced into the loading docks, rain pelting his face. Safe, finally safe, until the sound of squeaking wheels pierced the storm. Down the dock ramp, a shopping cart rolled toward him on its own. Slowly, purposefully, its steel frame banged against the wet pavement as it neared. Inside lay a single object, a receipt, bone white against the metal. Marcus staggered forward, unwilling but compelled. The slip was soggy from rain, but the words glowed through. Return complete, customer removed. Lightning split the sky, and the dock behind him was suddenly full of people, silent rows of customers, faces hidden under the shadows of their hoods, all standing still, watching. The intercom voice returned, vibrating directly through the rain itself. Thank you for shopping with us. The storm lights flickered and cut out. When morning staff arrived, the lot was empty except the shopping cart. Inside was nothing but Marcus's store uniform neatly folded, receipt pinned to the chest pocket. Story 5. The Employee Who Never Clocked Out Outline. 1. A shift that never ends. Have you ever wondered what happens to employees who mysteriously vanish during a shift, and whether they ever really left? Tracy was assigned the overnight restocking crew at a big box retail chain. The building, massive enough to echo footsteps across empty tiles, had the unnerving stillness of a cavern. Only 4 other workers manned the shift, and the silence was occasionally broken by the scrape of pallets and squeak of carts. At 2:16 a.m., she was restocking paper towels when she noticed something odd. The employee time clock, the one workers swiped cards through, glowed brighter than usual. Out of habit, Tracy glanced at the monitor and blinked. It displayed 5 employees clocked in. Strange, there were only 4 besides her. She nudged her co-worker Derek. Someone didn't sign out from the last shift, maybe? But Derek shook his head nervously. Nah, that's weird. The system resets daily. The name burned on the screen chilled her spine. Employee, Harris, shift time, 12 years, 4 months, 21 days. Tracy frowned. Who's Harris? None of them knew an employee by that name. The intercom crackled, though only management had access code. A man's voice slipped through grainy static. Breaks over. Back to work. Tracy and Derek stared at each other. Neither of them had touched the system. Then came the sound. Loud, deliberate footsteps echoing across the empty seasonal aisle. Heavier than any cart, rhythm steady, approaching. The problem was all 5 of them were already standing together, frozen in dread. Staring down an aisle that should have been empty. Outline 2. The aisle that swallows Tracy forced herself to breathe. Probably security, she whispered, though her words rang hollow. The store had no overnight guards. The footsteps drew closer, spilling into the fluorescent light. Yet when the group craned their necks to see, the aisle was empty. Just paper products stacked floor to ceiling, but a new sound rattled them to the core. The cash registers at the far end beeped violently, like phantom sales racking up. The receipt printers hissed out pages upon pages, white coils littering the checkout lanes. Desperate for answers, Tracy hurried forward, picking up a slip that had rolled under her shoe. In jagged, distorted print appeared item sold, 1 employee, Tracy, no returns. Her throat tightened. She dropped it immediately. All the registers now glowed the same looping words across their screens. Clock out, clock out, clock out. Suddenly, behind them, the aisle went unnaturally quiet. Too quiet. When Tracy turned, Derek was gone. He had been standing right beside her moments ago. No footsteps running off, no sound of movement, just gone. The time clock near the break room flickered. Tracy could see its glow even across the floor. She walked closer carefully, heart stuttering. Derek's name blinked across the monitor. Beneath it, In chilling, stark font, shift ended. Employee uploaded. Her stomach lurched, and from the intercom, that same man's voice groaned deeper, rasping with strain yet eerily cheerful. One more to go. Outline 3. The missing crew panic spread. Tracy rushed back into the seasonal aisle, searching wildly for her remaining co-workers. Two others, Luis and Mariah, were stocking shelves moments earlier. The aisle looked freshly arranged, every product perfectly aligned, not a single mark of human presence. "Luis," she called, her voice cracking. No answer. She spun, racing down toward electronics, her sneakers squealing on polished tile. The fluorescent lights flickered in stuttering patterns overhead. Each corridor she entered looked pristine, silent. But down near the checkout aisles, something new awaited: shopping carts. 3 of them lined in a row, stacked neatly, like someone had abandoned them mid-shop. Inside each cart, neatly folded employee uniforms, perfect name tags pinned to the chest. She dared to lift one. The tag bore Mariah's name. Her stomach curdled. Static from the intercom grew again. The voice growled, almost cheerful. "Great work, Tracy, all stocked. Just you left now." No, she gasped, backing into the shelves. The lights above her buzzed violently, then shorted out completely. The entire store plunged into crushing darkness. Only the glow of the time clock down the hall dimly lit the air like a beacon. Its monitor displayed a single message flickering over and over: "Final punch-out required." Behind her, the metal clang of a cart echoed. Wheels squealed against tile, approaching slowly, closer, closer. She pressed herself to the wall, trembling, but a shape finally emerged. Pushing the ghostly cart was a tall, shadowy figure in a store uniform. His faded name tag gleamed dully. It read, "Harris, Outline 4, the break room." Bargain Tracy bolted to the break room, slamming the door shut and twisting the lock. Her chest heaved, air coming in broken gasps. She pressed herself against the cold plastic chairs. The wall clock ticked abnormally loud. The hands spun faster than natural, hours sliding by in seconds. Midnight to dawn in the blink of an eye. The vending machine flickered alive, humming ominously. Letters and numbers rattled across its display as if typing. Words formed clearly across the old LCD. "Would you like to clock out now?" she screamed, hurling a chair at it, glass shattering. Candy bars and bags spilled onto the tile. The lights flickered. A phone buzzed on the wall. It hadn't rung in years. Against her will, she lifted the receiver. A male voice greeted warmly, distorted yet patient. "Every job ends eventually, Tracy. We keep our employees forever. It's time." Tears stung her eyes. "No," she sobbed, whispering into the void. The reply was simple, chilling. "Punch out or we'll do it for you." The break room lights snapped off, leaving her in velvet dark. From corner to corner she heard them now. Voices of her co-workers, Luis, Mariah, Derek, all whispering in unity, their tones hollow. "Join us. Join us, join us." The break room door creaked open, and there stood Harris, uniform pristine, blank-faced, holding out the glowing employee time card. Outline 5, the endless shift. She stumbled backward as Harris pressed the card into her chest. It felt burning hot, searing into her shirt. On instinct, Tracy bolted down the hall toward the emergency exit. The key shook in her fingers. She shoved the crash bar and burst into cool night air. Freedom, or so she thought. The outside wasn't the outside anymore. Her breath left her as she gasped. The parking lot was gone. No cars, no street lamps, no city skyline beyond the horizon. Just endless repeating rows of aisles stretching toward infinity. Electronics, seasonal, home goods, like the store expanded endlessly into forever. The intercom blared above. Even in the open void, "Welcome to your forever shift." Every aisle around her filled with shadowy employees, each wearing identical uniforms, faces blank, tags pinned, but each tag bore expiration dates stretching decades in the past. Some shuffled carts, some folded clothes, endlessly replaying menial tasks. Harris appeared at the head of them, calm, patient, unblinking. He stretched out his hand again. "It's easier if you don't fight." The time clock blinked beside him, standing tall where the parking lot should have been. Its words no longer pleaded but commanded, "Employee Tracy, clocked out, status permanent." Thunder echoed through the infinite aisles as the lights all went out in unison. When morning staff arrived, the real store was normal. The aisles were organized immaculately, every shelf pristine as if no one had worked. Only one strange thing remained on the time clock's record. Tracy, shift ended, 12 years, 4 months, 21 days, exactly the same as Harris.